sidewalk improvements, ADA ramps. Cause I haven't gotten any notices about any
Hi, how are
Good
you?
evening.
like development.
Councilmember McClymonds is running late. He's looking about 15 minutes. So he was wondering if we could call him, because again, if his phone won't use Teams for some reason.
He's gonna have to get it. He got one of those city monitored phones, you know, the tracker phone. You could like,
We used this last time for that.
Yep.
Yeah, here's mine. I still,
Can someone text Kelly that phone number?
yes,
It's ready to go.
is it?
it is
It's ready.
a
Good.
253
447.
447.
3287.
I guess I'm gonna put the dash.
Yes, you have to call it.
447.
So.
3287.
3287.
Okay.
That's right. I can start. Yeah.
Hey.
Be here.
Michael,
It's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
are you able to start your presentation?
You want me to, I can
Yeah.
share it, sure.
Yeah, please.
Sharing your desktop.
All right, I'm about to set these over by 7 here. I'll take a couple to get me through the meeting.
Ken's gonna need more. Ken's gonna need more.
Come on, I gotta add them.
All right, here, you can be the keeper of the kisses.
Thank you.
Sure said you didn't want them.
As long as they're not in hand reach of me, I don't care.
Cupcakes from Jocelyn's birthday party. Want a sugar bomb?
Yes, the frosting is like a mile high.
Yes.
I'm not a frosting person. I'm a cake
So,
person.
sure, we got y'all figured out for your questions on this.
Councilmember McClymonds?
Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
What did you say?
You have a permit question?
We were looking at 3 and 3 or 4 like summer and stuff too.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime.
yeah.
Maybe they were they the big ones or something? Because we
Yeah, it
get
was like
charged if they were like,
or whatever.
Green
we
Scott,
should only
louder
get
than the
the
band.
top.
Mhm.
She was saying. it got
Fundraiser.
charged if
I
they're-
forgot to go by and do that today. I knew like.
Fundraiser too, it's nothing.
And those might have been. That's
Yeah.
the
Our velvet
day
sweets.
So there's a sign up
that.
on the outside of our cubicle if you want one.
Oh, for the bundt cakes.
But-
Yeah.
When is that due?
Technically.
Oh, no, it's up there today. I was gonna go by and look at it tomorrow.
Company.
Can you
All the facilities.
scan it to me and then I can scan
Right,
it back?
but because they're,
Texas.
they're like
Yeah.
I'm done.
correct, but they're
Makes me
going
sad.
through us. So
Are you gonna see?
Can I,
it's
or I
to
can
us.
just.
Right.
So we
Stephanie, plug yours for a
can talk
second.
about that
You can also
again.
see, you have to come over for an important meeting for an hour and then come over
And
and see us and go back.
you-
She can
we
do that
can
anyway. I
Talk
don't
about
care.
that.
I don't, sometimes I'm looking at, sometimes I'm looking at my emails
You
and
wanna meet sometime?
like today, I'm like,
Oh, yeah. when I-
I saw all these whole things for your calendar. I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Oh, I was
No,
doing
know.
something for Jennifer.
I know, I saw that. I figured it out.
I was helping Dina and Jennifer out.
But it's hard when you don't have the two
Oh,
screens.
do we have
Yeah.
the meeting thing?
I do
The little
understand that.
questionnaire thing that they usually give me?
Because
or
yesterday
the-
I said,
like the
"Okay, well,
agenda."
I should just plug into Mel's.
Well, you know, with the agenda that I can take notes
Yeah, I
on,
don't know why you don't.
the like little one page thing that they usually give
That
me.
area she is.
I guess just
I don't
use
think we
this.
have,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
let me have on that.
All right,
But that's all okay.
okay.
You sure you don't like
I guess it
No,
says I'm
I mean,
gonna call the
just
meeting to
for
order, so.
Yeah, but then you
Never
don't
mind.
want
Okay.
Oh, everything. phone's
I'm
gone,
just
everything's
asking
gone.
for
Yeah,
extra
no.
paper, please.
I'm sorry, I just did.
Andrea, who's
Oh, I know.
helping with the presentation,
It's hard.
accidentally went out to the
That-
public services building.
Yeah, it is.
And so she's on her way. So
Okay.
if you want to, we can start with the Jack stuff.
Okay.
And then circle back to that.
Great.
Trust me, I know
Kelly
how
will be
small
here
it
by
is.
that
Yeah.
time.
And I know that
Okay, so we are
it's
at 5 o'clock.
the room.
We're gonna go ahead and call this Community Development Committee to order. And do we have Councilmember McClymonds on the phone? And we have myself and
Councilmember McClymonds?
Did we call him? Do we need to call him?
He was there. No, he
Yeah, met him a
was.
few minutes ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's the green light for something. Oh, there it is.
There you are.
Hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have Councilmember McClymonds on the telephone and Dan's Councilmember Swatman and myself are present. And the approval of the minutes from the April 2nd meeting. Did you go over those, Councilmember McClymonds?
Yeah.
I went over them. I didn't see anything. So I think between the two of us, we were good.
I agree.
Okay. So minutes approved. Okay, so we are going to wait on the department presentation.
We just got.
Oh.
Andrew just got him.
You want to go ahead and do the Jack anyway to give her a couple minutes?
Yeah.
You know,
You can get such,
Yeah.
we'll do something that will come right back to you.
yeah. So we're gonna skip ahead to discussion and action items. E, the AB 24-30, motion M 24-30, joint advisory committee representation.
Yes. So, when the city council assigned the ILA with the city of Sumner, back in January of this year, one of the newly created items that came out of that ILA was a joint advisory committee. This is the first time we've actually had a fully staffed joint advisory committee developed as part of the interlocal agreement. Under the interlocal agreement, the role of the joint advisory group is to, basically review the wastewater treatment facilities operations improvements, address budget matters, provide input on plans, budget and capital improvements, and ensure compliance with the overall interlocal agreement. Under the ILA, the committee is to meet quarterly and is made up of 3 council members from the city of Bonney Lake and then 3 council members from the city of Sumner, in addition to the mayors and city administrators from the city of Sumner and Bonney Lake. At this time, we're trying to identify who is going to be the city council members that are served on the Joint Advisory Committee, or JAC. Our recommendation is for the council members who serve on CDC to also serve as the council members that serve on the JAC. There's 2 reasons for this. The city of Sumner's approach is to use their Public Works Committee as also their JAC representation. And both the city of Sumner and Public Works Committee and our CDC committee meet on Tuesday. So coordinating a quarterly JAC meeting on a Tuesday would just help improve efficiencies. And also every item that really comes up with a wastewater treatment plant is a CDC issue ultimately. So our recommendation would be for just a motion that says, basically what we've typed, which is whoever is on the CDC is also by default the representation to the Joint Advisory Committee for the wastewater sewer treatment plant. We're trying to get this, like, the committee identified so that the JAC can have its first meeting sometime between now and June for the second quarter of 2024. And I can answer any questions.
So we're going to go ahead and put this on not on a consent agenda. We're going to put this on full council for discussion.
Yeah, it's a CDC.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Kelly, do you have any questions about the JAC?
Oh, that makes sense to me.
So does it make sense that since they're using their version of CDC down in Sumner is the Public Services Committee, so theirs would be PSC, and then ours is the Community Development Committee. So to have 3 from each committee be meeting with Sumner.
I think that fundamentally makes sense. We may want to, would there be anything that would keep us if we wanted to try to rope Councilmember Swatman into it? Councilmember Swatman.
Yeah,
If anybody's not available, I'd be happy to sit in, or whatever the committee wants, right? If somebody's not available for the particular meeting, it's, there's typical somebody can fill in for somebody else type of a thing. We can just have a maximum of 3. So normally, CDC, the 3 members would be the people that would be scheduled for that kind of a meeting, but there could be conflicts. Somebody could be out of town or something, who knows, right?
No.
Okay.
so it sounds like you'd be willing to be an alternate.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I think anybody, right? Anybody that happens to be. available.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't think it's controversial though, right?
No.
Could we put it on the consent agenda then, or is that, you know, it's, you don't want it to be on there, it's fine.
That's totally a council call.
I'm only thinking because we're talking about, I mean, I guess, you know, if we're talking about that the advice of staff is that we go with CDC
Mhm.
members. I don't know that any of the other council members would question that or want to see if they could put themselves on. I don't know. I mean,
It's
I,
just up to
do you
you,
think it-
really. I don't
I guess
see,
we
there's no
could-
reason you couldn't put it on con.
yeah, we can put it on consent and then if, anybody questions it, they can just pull it off.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that could
Okay.
be.
All
We'll
right.
put it on consent at the next April 23rd city council.
Yeah.
If I'm doing my math correctly. And I wrote it at the top. Thanks, Ken. All right, so with that, we will be done with that one and I will, once it's approved, Michael, I'll get with you to start talking dates and we'll try to target, if this is the way it's being approved by council, trying to target a Tuesday.
Yep.
In sometime in the next quarter.
And who's this?
Oh, sorry, I was about to pivot. So, as we move on to our next item, this is Michael Cosa. He is the Public Works Director for the city of Sumner, overseeing in part also the the wastewater treatment plant. And then Andrea is our, person hired to implement the pretreatment ordinance. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Program, with the city of Sumner. We had done a presentation for CDC a while back, but given that we have new faces and time has passed and we're not getting ready to implement the ordinance, we thought it'd be good time for the city of Sumner to come back, make a presentation on kind of what pretreatment is, and kind of what next steps are. In talking with the city of Sumner, there's not really a lot of new requirements. It's more of who is doing the enforcement of those requirements. So I kind of explaining that correctly, is a lot of the pretreatment program has been around since the 70s. The state was supposed to be doing the enforcement and inspection in the 80s. They have now said, oh, it's your turn, cities, to do the enforcement and the inspections. So some business owners who have not been complying with the program may feel that it's new requirements, but my understanding, and we can ask those questions, but it's not really a new suite of requirements as more as it is a new enforcement and inspection regime put on the cities. So with that, I will turn it over to Michael and Andrea.
So yeah, thank you very much, Jason. Like you mentioned, my name's Michael Cosa. I'm the Public Works Director. If you remember Mike Dallum, he was the Public Works Director, but he has since retired. So I'm taking his place. And Andrea is a City of Sumner employee. She was part of the pretreatment program, which is similarly funded by. Oh, you bet.
Sorry.
I just had it and now I just have to hit the right button and then it will come up. There we go. Now I'll do this one. Great.
All right.
All right. So yes, Andrea is a City of Sumner employee, but is part of the wastewater treatment plant and similarly going to be is funded similar to other wastewater treatment plant staff. So part of the Bonney Lake our partnership. So thank you very much, Chair Fullerton, for having us, and nice to see you again, Councilmember Swatman and also Councilmember McClymon's on the phone. So I won't go too much further because that's Andrea's job. This is her thing. But thank you for having us. And this is a program that's been known about for over a decade. It was in actually the ILA previous to the one that we just passed. That was always contemplated that this would be a requirement that the State Department of Ecology would be adding to our permit. And a couple of years ago, it was officially added as a requirement of our permit. And that's why we're walking through this path. So we all knew about it. It was even in that original ILA, and that's why So it's just a long time coming, but we're kind of getting to the end of the road where we're actually getting to implementation at the end of the year. So I'll let you finish.
Yeah, yeah.
But
no,
thank you
no,
very much.
You're welcome, and thank you guys again for having us, and I look forward to fielding questions. I think, I don't know how you guys usually do it, but if you want to stop me while I'm talking, if you have a question, or if you want to leave them for the end, it's totally up to you. And we'll kind of just go with the flow. As that says, you know, we started the presentation just to tell you, to give you the why we're here today. You know, we want to talk about the wastewater, for the pre-treatment program, because we're going to be coming to city council to ask that they adopt this new pre-treatment, these new pre-treatment regulations. And so to help you guys make an informed decision, let's go through pre-treatment 101 again. I added some details, but it's, you know, it's a lot of the information that we walked through, I think last year, 2 years ago now. Wow. Yeah.
And flies.
You know, we're just kind of just giving an overview of the program that we collectively developed and will be jointly implementing. So,
Didn't we already adopt our regulations?
We did the draft, but we haven't adopted the actual pre-treatment regulations because they were still going through the ecology approval
yeah, the
process.
ecology approval.
But we did sit down and talk through them already once, so it's not
Sure.
new information.
Yeah.
But that was last year. That we kind of walked through.
It all-
It all blends,
Yeah.
like the journey.
All right, so, yeah, so, and this is just a picture of the
Sewer
service
service
area.
area,
Yeah,
yay,
that
for
this
everybody.
program will, be implemented within, and it's both of our sewer service, our service areas.
So anybody inside of that area could possibly be under the new requirements.
Anyone
basically.
in, that is connected to the treatment plant in this service area is, subject to these,
Cause so there is some people in that area that you probably
in
noticed that are
periods
in
of non-domestic-
Auburn.
What's that?
There's somebody that are actually serviced by Auburn's sewer plant.
No,
Yeah.
we don't have any interlocal part agreements at this point with any other jurisdiction than
So,
Bonney.
cause that's just of note, right? That's what I'm saying is that our sewer service area, part of the provider is Auburn to some of it. So obviously you guys aren't gonna, you know, I think, I don't know if Lakeland is, which way if they're on our sewer or on Auburn's, but it's that kind of the area right there. There's some homes. I don't know if there's any businesses.
Yeah, Lakeland is not in our sewer service area, just water service area, so they would be under
Yeah.
whatever Auburn service
Yeah.
provider is. But there is a small subdivision, so it's all residential homes, called Feather Cove that is in our sewer service area, but actually served by King County through another ILA through the city of.
So I don't know if they're on this map.
They would be,
Um,
cause they're in our sewer service.
so they're in your sewer service area, but really it's only what's going to the treatment
Yeah,
plant that
that's
we,
going, right, yeah.
that this collective.
And it doesn't sound like you're concerned with homeowners yet, per se,
Unless they have a-
unless there's some kind of,
But no,
Generally not.
no, yeah. Great question. Yeah, thanks for letting us clarify and helping me better understand what's on this map. Okay, so, the next slide is of the Cuyahoga River fire, and I like to start.
you always got to throw something.
Oh, no, next slide is the agenda. I'm sorry, I'm moving forward.
That's close, so.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
I know, I know.
Yeah,
That's always morale boosting in this meeting, that river fire.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of historically interesting.
you know, I want to give the why, always want to give the why, right? So just today, we're gonna go over, you know, why we're being required to implement this new program. We're gonna talk a little bit about pre-treatment and why it's important and the impacts of the program on our service areas, and then our accomplishments and next steps.
Wow,
There you go.
Yeah, so
Should
we're
have a
all
color
familiar with
photo.
it, and, you know, we know that in 1969, this river, the Cuyahoga River fire caught on fire. And this picture it wasn't actually the first time it caught on fire, because the river was used for the disposal of commercial and industrial waste. The Cuyahoga River actually caught on fire 13 times over a span of 20 years. This picture is from the largest and most devastating fire in 1953, and photographs of this fire were shown on the cover of Time magazine. And the 1969 fire literally sparked the modern environmental.
Yay.
Sparked. No pun there.
Pun intended.
So, you know, this fire is in a way why I'm here in front of you today. From that, the Clean Water Act was established. And within the Clean Water Act, it gave the federal government the ability to implement the NPDES permits, and also it included requirements to implement a pre-treatment regulation. So it gave EPA the authority to implement pollution control programs. That's what they say, to set wastewater standards for commercial and industrial waste streams. All right.
So this is, the largest fire, in 1969. And then in 1972 is when the Clean Water Act was implemented. And they used this as a reference to why they had to do the Clean Water Act. But since this was the largest, was this also the last? Had they cleaned it up after that because of this huge, large fire, and then they were able to kind of fix it so it never happened again?
It was everyone at the time used state and federal water body as their discharge point. So it took a really long time to get control of those discharges to the point that we could have a healthy, that river was healthy. It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And they already had the water pollution. There was another
Predecessor.
of the Clean Water Act, and they updated it and called and adopted it as the Clean Water Act in 72. But that 69 fire is what really gave it a lot of attention that it needed to kind of push regulations that would help us manage our local waterways and use them in a responsible way.
Okay.
Oftentimes, federal government does not do anything unless there's some seminal event, right?
Right.
You know, they
can't.
can't be distracted. It's just in your face, and they say they have to do something. And, you know, this was an example of that, but, you know, I'm sure there was plenty of other environmental hazards that were going along, but this was kind of the poster child. And that's kind of oftentimes what forces the Congress to make a move.
Yeah, and sure.
Yeah, I think. Any good emergency go unused.
Yes, that's always and forever.
But a lot of times we end up paying the price for somebody's choices
Yeah.
far away. We deal with things like Flint, Michigan, and, you know, all of the lead pipe work that is being done nationwide because of, you know, somebody's choices out in Michigan, and the federal government decided they have to come in and force everybody to do something that may not be as big of a problem in any one spot. But there's those seminal moments where they choose to act, and we all get to live with it.
And so, you know, we all know how these federal programs tend to eventually fall into the lap of local agencies. And that's what this next slide kind of talks about, that it's fallen on us to implement and maintain this program. After Congress passed the EPA to develop and implement these pollution control programs, the EPA turned administrative responsibilities over to the state of Washington in 1986. Fast forward to 2021, and which is when the state renewed our discharge permit for the wastewater treatment facility. And in the new permit, ecology included, in order for us to take over regulatory responsibility for the pretreatment program. So now you know how we ended up with this baton, right? I wrote it as the baton in this federal program relay race. You know, it's all been kind of handed down. So let me just tell you a little bit about this specific pollution control program. In a nutshell, we're responsible for first identifying businesses who have a non-domestic wastewater. Then, once we've determined the nature of the non-domestic wastewater, and we determine whether or not it would cause issues in the sewer collection system or treatment plant. And based on that, we would make the determination of either permitting them or giving them some level of a control document, or just listing them on our annual pretreatment report to the Department of Ecology, listing them as a domestic equivalent, meaning, you know, they don't have any other processes that create a waste stream outside of their bathrooms or hand sinks.
And that's, I don't know if you define non-domestic waste stream anywhere, but maybe you could say,
Yeah.
mention that because you use it a lot of times throughout.
A great, that gives me a great opportunity to pull up our, let's see, non-domestic wastewater as our new, ordinance, or the pretreatment regulations defines it. If you'll let me pull it up. So we've defined a non-domestic user, because that's what I refer to a lot. As any person that does not qualify as a domestic user, which is defined as a residential user, and is a source or potential source of indirect discharge. And then and it goes on, but to show what it includes, and then non-domestic wastewater is wastewater that is not domestic. So it's not coming from a residential facility or residence, or and it's not being generated from hand washing or toilet use. Generally, this is it would be as simple as the bucket of water that a school is using to mop the floors and then putting it into a mop sink. That is a non-domestic wastewater. The waste that goes, or the water that's used to wash dishes at the McDonald's, that's a source of non-domestic wastewater. But yeah, it's basically anything that's not coming from our bathrooms, from a business.
Yeah.
Hit all the points.
Sometimes we think
Travel
about
shopping.
industrial wastewater, but really, you know, this
Yeah.
specifically non-domestic. So yeah, if you're, you know, whether it's odds are a business has maybe some use for water,
Mhm.
some way, shape or form, and so the scope of regulation that's required under the program is substantial. It's not just like a couple businesses. It's most businesses would be using water for a non-domestic use.
Yeah.
So
And that's a good point to bring up, that we were intentional about using the word non-domestic wastewater instead of industrial wastewater. In our old codes, we both have industrial waste. And a lot of times, the businesses that that are going to engage in this program, they're not a big industry. They may be a restaurant or a medical facility that has as a source of non-domestic wastewater. And so, you know, you get that pushback. Well, we're not an industry. We don't have any source of in process wastewater. But they do, and that's what the state requires us to inventory, is all sources of non-domestic wastewater to the treatment plant. And so, and that's what we're trying to capture, and that's what we're trying to do with this program.
What's the state's definition of non-domestic?
I can
Since yours
look
is
that up.
different.
Non-domestic wastewater in state code. I'm sure it's similar, because a lot of the stuff, I didn't go really above and beyond what the state and what required of us.
Domestic.
So,
Well, I thought it was curious that they have their own definition. I would have thought they would have just.
no, I
used the
mean,
State's definition.
yeah, I've used, what I meant is that we're now incorporating the term into our new code. The, non-domestic wastewater, I think, is used pretty routinely
As opposed to industrial maybe.
as opposed to industrial, yeah, as distinct from, let's see,
It seems like if you're saying, non-domestic versus, industrial, then we can go after smaller businesses that maybe are just little mom and pop,
Yeah.
hole in the wall restaurant.
I
And
would
so
like to
we can
frame it
kind of.
as supporting them. We could support them in complying with this water quality program,
Mhm.
because they will be subject to them, but it doesn't have to be onerous, and
Mhm.
we can help them, comply. A lot of the mom and pops, they have already grease traps. That's a pre-treatment device.
Yeah.
And we would work with them or through the FOG program, work with them to manage that device in a way that doesn't bypass anything into your system.
And what's
Isn't-
fog?
Isn't that separate?
Oils and greases.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, I knew that.
Yeah, it stands
Thank you,
for
I
fats,
appreciate it.
oils and greases.
Fats,
It's,
oils, greases.
yeah, and that's already a program that the
Mhm.
city has been running and
An
operating.
exam, how do we regulate that?
And that was since 1972 for the.
No, that's pre-treatment. I don't know how long we've had the
Oh, okay.
FOG program off the
Okay.
top of my head.
Okay.
Businesses, when they do development, we look at the kind of development they're doing and then determine if they have to have an oil water superator, which is what catches the fats, oils and greases. During the inspection process, the civil engineers determine how big that needs to be, where it needs to be located. And then we have, on the maintenance side, inspection program that goes out and basically opens the interceptors and makes sure that the amount of material that is getting collected on the top is of a certain thickness. And that by the time you get to the third chamber, those fats, oils and greases have been basically held up in the upper chamber so that the water getting discharged to the sewer system doesn't include that fat, oil and grease, which from a just operational standpoint is something we want to do because once that gets into our main sewer system, it can cause blockages, which we would then have to go and fish out and clean. So keeping fats, oils and outside of pre-treatment and water quality issues, keeping fats, oils and greases out of the sewer system, just from a maintenance perspective, is vitally important.
Yeah.
So that we're not spending time to basically go rotor all of our sewer mains as they get clogged up with
Yeah.
fats and oils and greases. So
Just the line, the more you have, the sooner you have to replace it, and that's infrastructure, makes it
So
cost.
is draining
Yeah.
a hot tub a non? It is.
Well, draining a hot tub from a residential, home, no.
Non-residential.
Draining the pool at the YMCA, that is a non-domestic wastewater, that it would be, we would want to know about it, we want to make sure our lift station isn't overwhelmed. And so we would have a control document that says, hey, let us know when you do that, so that we can let our plant know, so our guys aren't running out there saying, oh, is there a water line break, or what's going on?
Who
You know,
pays
it helps
for the
us manage.
control document?
Hmm?
Who pays for the control document?
Yeah, so we will establish a system that would have permit fees for these as control documents that would pay for our time to review the application and to generate and issue the document. On the higher level, on the bigger industries that have a larger flow, the cost would be a little bit higher because we would be having to go out and do inspections or do monitoring, and they would be sending us data in every month. That's a lot higher level, more touch points. On the YMCA, it would be a lot less, and because there would be a lot less time that we have to invest in it. With the FOG programs, it is a FOG program, a fats, oils and grease program, is a small component of pretreatment that most municipal agencies have incorporated into their code over the last couple decades because it is such a benefit to the collection system. And it was never required by the state. But now, as we've grown, the treatment plant is at a size where we do have to adopt the full pre-treatment regulations. Because the device that he described, the grease trap, that holds the solids and the grease and fats, it's essentially treating it prior to discharge. So it's a pre-treatment device. So even those activities would fall now under the umbrella of the pretreatment program. And you know, just the point of this program is to establish a local presence that can help these businesses navigate the federal program as it applies to them. And some will be more robust and comprehensive, but most are, you know, aren't going to really be impacted by it outside of, you know, just reporting it so that we can list it as a source of non-domestic water, that wastewater that's going to the treatment plant, because that's what we're required for our permit to track and know about.
So like the car wash is gonna
Mhm.
be, you guys have a template for that, or is that gonna be does that work?
Yeah, we've got a program manual, and so what we'll start to start, our implementation plan, starts by collecting non-domestic wastewater surveys. So gives me the opportunity to say, oh, you're a non-domestic, or you're a domestic equivalent, you go on a list. You need this level of engagement, and you need a larger, you know, footprint, a more comprehensive permit. So something like the car wash, we would engage with them. We would give them the opportunity to tell us what kind of activities are generating that waste stream. And then we would issue a permit with conditions, like, you know, you have a control device, you have to get it cleaned annually and keep those records on site so we can just hold you accountable, which is what they're doing now, but it's just going to be more formally, or not formally, because you guys already require it, but it'll be incorporated into the pretreatment program. And some businesses, depending on the nature of the water that they make, and they may have to test it and make sure it's not going to add that we can't remove, that might sit in our biosolids and prevent us being able to make Class A biosolids and little things like that, which I kind of get into in the rest of the presentation. But what's important to me is that we engage with our business community and partner with them and support them through this program.
But it's gonna cost.
Mhm.
Okay.
And, you know, because right now, you know, who it's costing the citizens of Bonney Lake and the citizens of Sumner.
Yep.
You know, they're passing the cost to do business on to the citizens because those are reflected in sewer rates. And as, you know, the more pollutants that they don't remove.
So how much is that?
But our
How much is that?
rate's gonna go down. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, how much is that? How much is it costing?
That's a good question, and the answer is we don't know. We don't know how, we haven't.
We don't have data.
We don't have all the data. We haven't completed all the surveys yet. To even know what all of the properties are contributing to,
Yeah, and it probably changes as we build car washes.
Right, and as new business come online, and you can imagine you've got every pipe coming from every one of these properties in Bonney Lake and Sumner, and you have, you know, if you looked at what was coming in, you know, out of this pipe, it's very domestic waste, and that's what our system is set up to treat, is domestic waste. That's what our wastewater treatment plant is set up for. So you can think of all the properties you have, and all of them are contributing domestic waste, and all of a sudden you get to this one location where, you know, they have a different process that, you know, like, let's say it's a brewery, and they just start discharging their brewery waste. That's gonna look a lot different than, you know, your standard, what's coming out of a household, right? So
Where did that come from?
I don't know which brewery.
No, we don't have any of those, right?
Okay.
Those seem to be the hot topic
Okay.
nowadays.
And now I'm not talking home breweries and talking
No, we're
about.
talking, yeah,
like,
the
you know,
microbrewery
like a
stuff that's all
microbrewery.
over the place. Yeah.
So the amount of money it costs to treat that waste is dramatically different the amount that it costs to treat domestic waste.
Do you have a schedule that we can look at and see what that difference is?
We are developing a schedule now. We haven't.
Study.
Yeah, that's part of we're doing a fee structure study right now in Sumner to do that. But really, the pretreatment program, we want to review and understand what that brewery is, you know,
Yeah.
providing as their process waste. And then for the idea of pretreatment is to say, okay, you brewery need to do a pre-treatment before it reaches our system.
Sure.
To get that flow that was
Yeah.
brewery waste down to something much more similar to domestic waste.
Right.
That's the concept.
Yeah.
And so if we don't do that, then that brewery waste is hitting the treatment plant and we're all paying additional money to treat that more high strength waste, when really that brewery, if they just treated it themselves, would bear the cost
Sure.
of
Yeah.
the waste that they're creating rather than the rest of the public.
So you're saying the operating costs will go down after we.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if, generally, the concept would be that. With inflation, I think everything's going up like crazy these days, so I'm not gonna guarantee.
But
But-
yeah, it
but-
could be beneficial in that.
It would be a benefit, it would be of a benefit to the system.
You're gonna be able to quantify that though, so for example, that brewery, right, it has like an existing load that it today does or what have you, without any pretreatment. I don't know if some of them probably do or don't, or, but if you go out to a brewery, for an example, and how are you gonna establish what, if they have a pretreatment now, if that's good enough, or, how do you do that?
We would take samples and analyze their waste stream, right? So typically from a brewery, you're seeing about 5,000 to 9,000 parts per million of BOD.
Yeah.
Domestic wastewater is 200 to 300 parts per million.
Yeah.
So you can see there's a big difference. And so once we finish our study, we would hopefully, or we will have a cost to treat a gallon of BOD. So then you would just multiply it by how many gallons
Sure,
they're sending to us.
So we're working on it.
Yeah.
I guess is the quick answer, but it's very
But as far as, we may not be able to directly link, right,
Sure.
the impact of the program, but I do know that the monthly, what we pay for monthly, both of us collectively, is essentially the treatment of pollutants into the plant, right, the removal. And as our business partners are doing their part and removing those pollutants, we're no longer having to pay to remove them. So the BOD loading could absolutely go down. The total suspended solids that are being sent right now, maybe bypassing some of the devices because they aren't maintained properly.
Mhm.
You guys are paying, that goes into your percent loading for the
Yeah,
month.
yeah.
So as we ask these businesses to be community partners and to manage that waste stream to a level that's closer to domestic waste, I think, you would be able to see differences. And even like you would be able to see the difference.
It makes the waste
over
load
time.
more consistent, makes it easier to manage, it makes it more
Yeah.
effective for us to not have to, try to make, take it, extreme steps, when we've had, something that would shock the system. It's, if we have that kind of regular waste stream, it makes it more efficient to run the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Yeah,
good point.
for example, when we talked about the YMCA, they did empty their entire pool once without telling us.
Right.
And a whole bunch of our, the crew was out there trying to figure out what the heck's going on, and it did not cause that big of a problem that time, but we, if a shock of chlorine comes through the system,
Mhm.
and we have, a bunch of biological processes going at the treatment plant,
Had,
you're gonna kill a bunch of bugs.
Yeah.
That's a problem, or, we have to then figure out ways to adapt.
And that's
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 the thing.
also something to consider, this program is going to allow us to identify the facilities that have large quantities of material that if discharged to the sewer system could really, really harm and impact the treatment plant. Could mix in the streets and have your street explode, right? That's alarmist. But that is the intent behind it, to protect public health, protect our sewer infrastructure. I like to say a well-run pretreatment program helps us to, I think it was like I like to say it, but I haven't said it in a long time apparently, but it basically, helps us to establish not only reliable sewer services, but reasonable sewer rates. So both of them.
It's a good story. Keep telling it. I like it.
Yeah, you know, because our infrastructure is, we're being responsible with our.
Sticking to it.
And then we're reducing, we're having them pay the cost to treat their waste and remove the pollutants where appropriate. And a lot of times it's not going to be, testing or analysis or putting in this big treatment facility. For example, there could be, there are little shops around both jurisdictions that have, operations that use disinfectant wipes all the time. Our control mechanism may say, hey, we need you to establish a best management practice that trains your employees or tells your employees to not flush those wipes. Because if they put them in the trash can, we don't have to put them in our large trash can and pay for tons and tons of trash that we have to pull out of the waste stream. So it could be, simple as that sometimes. Just, best management practices that reduce their impact on.
So a conventional plant though, hair isn't a big issue, right? Is that
It
what?
is absolutely. a
Oh, it
issue.
is. So if everybody was bald, it would be better. It'd be cheaper. We
Well, you have-
encourage short
You
hair.
have trash cans beside your toilet, so when you're pulling the hair out of the brush, put it in the trash. I guess in the shower you can't do, but.
Bald people should get credit.
Apparently I'm a
So-
big problem.
You're never a big problem.
I have a collection device. It's actually called a brush. And then I take that out and I put it in the garbage can.
Good.
So
I'm
I
glad you
think
said
I'm
garbage
doing
can,
my
not
part.
toilet.
I'm working
You're
on
doing
that.
your part.
Yeah, you're in.
And I have a catcher in the drain
Oh,
for what
wonderful.
falls into the shower.
Yeah.
Part of the treatment.
Dennis.
Oh.
There you go. I didn't even know it.
Dennis,
You're on
Great
board.
question.
Things are gonna be impacted.
They are now, they have the potential to add a high concentration of mercury into
Yeah.
our system. And we have to really control the levels of mercury we're getting into the plant because it either ends up in our waste stream or it ends up in our effluent out in the river,
Oh, boy.
or it ends up in our biosolids. And I'm just telling you, if we could,
Hmm.
I can't emphasize enough how much cost savings there is to the biosolids program, our Thunder Grove program, right? We don't sell it, but we don't have to haul it
Right.
to
And have
Eastern
it
Washington
industrial
and land apply it. That is, if we couldn't produce Class A biosolids, meaning if we had really high concentrations of mercury and all these metals,
Yep.
we would not be able to make Sumner grow, and that would be a really big additional expense
So
to
we-
our operational costs.
We don't have any dentists that
Oh,
are,
so-
because they catch it.
So they
So-
have in their facility, in their office,
So
what's
ready,
called an
right?
amalgam
Yeah.
separator.
Right.
Mhm,
Yeah, so,
mhm,
so they're required to maintain those pretreatment devices
mhm.
and to report annually that they've serviced the device and that they're maintaining it in a way that does not bypass their device and send mercury to our system. Yeah, so they
Okay.
are.
Yeah, we don't want any dancing cats.
Non-domestic waste products.
Minamata.
How do we regulate that today? Is that part of their business license? They're
It's kind of,
permitting
I
or
don't
they're.
even think it is, right?
Do that?
Yeah.
I think it's,
Yeah, I think it's.
That's been
The
a
state
long.
requires them to
So,
submit a one-time certification statement that they have and they will continue to.
Mhm.
But now, the,
yeah, they're gonna be on. the
now
list.
we're required to make sure that they're maintaining. It was kind of response to the EPA's more recent, mercury, management, plan that they issued, around in 2020 or 2019, and the states responded. And so a lot of us are just kind of catching up. So now that, they have this by EPA standards, they have to submit it once, but with the expectation that locally we'll monitor and manage it and make sure they're maintaining these devices in a responsible way.
So now that it's domestic and it's more, it's closer to home, the expectation is that the inspectors will go out and ask for those documents that they're certifying their machines
Yeah,
or.
that's a great question because I'd love to talk a little bit about the program management module that we'll be using.
We do have
Because that's gonna
some-
really streamline it, yeah, and sometimes, even with the fog, yeah, that's true.
Give me a
Oh,
look.
really? Wow.
See?
So
Haven't
anyways,
heard the
well,
noise
we
yet.
have, we
Yeah,
have
we have a couple.
program management module that will allow the business to upload that document.
Mhm.
And it'll give me a notification and they will just be
Oh.
marked as compliant. And so it doesn't even have to be necessarily
Okay.
an inspection all of the time. If they're just
Great.
required to
I
submit,
like that.
like a lot of the significant industrial users that have a really dangerous waste and potential waste stream, and they don't want to treat it, so they're getting it hauled offsite. They're still required by EPA to report to us that annually that they did not discharge. So we have that certification statement, so that if they are discharging, we can hold someone accountable.
Mhm.
And so that can be uploaded to our, program management system too. So we'll try to, mainstream it as much as we can.
Okay,
But
that's
I can
great.
just
I
flip
like
through
that.
the rest of this.
Yes, of course.
I just talk a little bit about, types of pretreatment devices you might see in our service area, the businesses. So we've got the dentist, the car wash, the medical facilities, machine shops, schools, and what kind of treatment processes or systems they may have. So the next slide is, and just stop me if you have any questions, because I'm not gonna go through, what I
Different types of
planned.
treatment
but-
for different types of businesses.
Yeah.
Whatever you need for your business,
Mhm.
that's what you need
There's-
to install. And
Right.
That's how, it's specialized and they know what they
And
need to put in.
Is there ways of getting grants for some of the newer startup businesses for their fog treatments and all of these things? Cause I have had nightmare stories of, one particular shop that was opening up and then kind of at the last minute got the fog treatment going on and he literally almost had to file bankruptcy before he even opened the doors, because that wasn't an expectation that he was expecting to be part of his business startup. So it was quite devastating and he made it, but it's,
So one thing we're gonna be doing is trying to move into that permit process. So that when people are coming in for either building permits or tenant improvements, where they're like, oh, I want to put it in this new business, then we need to inform them up front that, hey,
mhm.
if you're,
Right away.
yeah, when you're opening up a restaurant, you need to have a grease intercept as part of the regulations that we have, and you have to plan for it, and it's not going to get that sprung at the end. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
With regard to facilities that are existing, a lot of times that is a big hardship. If they have to all of a sudden install this new grease trap or something. But what the approach we like to take is that, if you can show us that you're managing your waste, you're implementing best management practices to maybe wipe your plates out and to reduce and remove most of your, those pollutants and put them in the trash, then your treatment is BMP, your best management practices are your pretreatment. And until, we can see that your facility is contributing a large amount of pollution and pollutants that, need to be controlled, then BMPs are fine.
Mhm.
And it's, more.
So essentially a little bit of a, kind of leeway for
Yeah,
some of the-
give them the opportunity to implement BMPs.
probation.
If, yeah, and like I said, if there's not there aren't signs of a significant amount of fog coming. So if it's a line that we have to jet every week and we know that there's 2 restaurants on it, well, there's not a lot of opportunity there because we're getting a lot of.
It might go down the enforcement route, but with enforcement usually ends up in voluntary compliance and trying to come up with a plan that suits, the system that we have in place and also the business to, try to move toward compliance
Mhm.
on an agreed upon schedule. I think that's really what we're going. We're not trying to put anybody on.
Mhm.
It was to try to get everybody moving the right direction.
That takes teamwork.
And partner with
It does.
them.
A big enough government and you can put any business on.
So, why is pre-treatment important? Other than, we have to comply with this order because the state is ordering it. But this slide demonstrates how a pretreatment program plays an integral role in providing reliable sewer services. Treatment plants are designed to handle domestic waste. There are some pollutants that are incompatible. The more of these pollutants entering the system, the more it costs to maintain compliance with our state discharge permit. Again, protect, prevent, and provide what I've listed there. We can go into the next slide if there are any questions. So who would the program impact? We kind of already covered this too. Non-domestic customers, which is any business with a commercial process. And just here's some examples. If the water sent to sewer isn't from a bathroom or a residential kitchen or laundry use, it's considered non-domestic wastewater. Okay, well, we're nearing the end because we're at next step. So this is what we've done so far in our program. So when we were issued the order to develop and implement a formal pretreatment program because our treatment plant had reached design capacity that triggered designation. We started in 2022 with performing a significant industrial user survey. And we submitted, these are all the submittals that we were required, but we worked several years on a local limits analysis. But we submitted our local limits sampling plan, which basically showed the state how we complied and collected samples in a representative way. Then in 2023, we submitted our local limits evaluation report, which was a list of pollutants that and what concentrations we can successfully remove them. We developed a program manual, which included program procedures and applications and permit templates and all the templates. We submitted that to the state. We submitted our enforcement response plan to the state and pretreatment regulations and our annual report template. And in 2024, we have submitted an evaluation of a legal authority, not a legal authority, sorry. And we are wrapping up the significant industrial user survey. That's what they call it with the state, but it's our non-domestic user survey. I'm really trying to push that, language change there. And we will be doing our code update. Because by June, we have to incorporate them or adopt them by June 1st, because on June 1st, we submit our full package, our full request for delegation to Ecology, and they will do their review, and then we'll do public outreach. And in 2025, we will fully implement our approved pretreatment program.
So kind of next steps for CDC is we'll be bringing the ordinance to CDC on May 7th. For discussion, and we have to have it adopted by the end of the month.
By the end of May? So what happens if we don't pass it?
I will look to Michael Kosa and Andrea to answer that question.
So,
Did he warn you that I was gonna ask that
I
question?
think I might have known that was coming. And I might not have the best answer, so we're gonna find out. But we have, you can see all the different items that we've completed to date.
Yeah.
This code update is really the final step to say, all right, we have everything that Ecology needs to review. They've reviewed everything already. They can't officially review everything until that code update is in place, that both Sumner and Bonney Lake will have code in place that is enforceable. That's one of the checkboxes they need to move forward with their implementation. That we're given a deadline of June 1st for that. What happens if we don't meet June 1st? We have started to talk with Ecology about it. I don't know if we have any specific answer, but it's just like any other permit deadline. It's the thing that the state is making us do by this date. And if we don't do it, the wrath of the state, right? It might be something small. It might be, considered, it depends on what they decide to do. And who is it? It might be Sumner only, or, Bonney Lake is listed as a contributing jurisdiction. So I can't really say what the answer is. I just know they said, here's what you need to do. And we're doing it. And we're not doing any more than what we have to do. We're doing essentially bare minimum for what,
we really did.
yeah, everything that's in our regulations and our treatment, our pre-treatment manual is all either boilerplate based on federal or state code. I know Andrea spent a ton of work on that to say, all right, this is what they're requiring us to do. We don't have, I mean, it's a nice program, but it's not, 5 times bigger than it has to be. It's the things the state is asking us to do. So, that's why, and that ordinance was put to ecology. They reviewed it and found it to be compliant. So, that language has been kind of approved by everybody. I do know that, it's, here's this thing, now approve it. That's a frustrating thing.
Are we doing a presentation on this as well to council? Are we
Well,
bringing
that's,
this next week? Or-
yeah, that's why we wanted to do it on May 7th.
Okay.
So that, we could move it to the May 14th city council as a full council item. And if we need more time, we would then have the second workshop in May to have more discussion. And we kind of gave us 3 weeks
Mhm.
to work this through council. I'm not gonna lie to you, there's 2 ways to adopt this ordinance, and I'm kind of gonna look for CDC's guidance tonight on that real quick. We can take Sumner's code and just copy it into our code verbatim. Or we can simply have a much smaller code that says we adopt the Sumner code by reference. So I didn't know if there was a preference from the CDC on which approach. It really doesn't change.
Prefer not to necessarily have it be a Bonney Lake code, so if it can be something by reference, I'd be more apt to be happy with that, but, I don't know, I mean, unless you want, if we want control over it though,
Yeah, my instinct tells me that, but I don't know, I'd have to defer to the senior council.
Well, it's a good place to start, right?
By reference?
Yeah, whichever is more practical.
Sure.
Cause if they need to change some stuff that are working on a little bit, but. In the end, like, you guys just said, we wanna be as light touch on the businesses as possible, which sounds like is what we're hearing.
so if we need to make it be our ordinance so that we can have,
Yeah, we can come
You know,
back and say.
we can come back and say, well,
these-
we don't
these things
necessarily
are-
agree with this particular technique
What do you think we should?
of enforcement.
I think the challenge is if we don't adopt it by reference, that puts us in having to do that straight negotiation with the Department of Ecology, because we're taking on that ordinance and making changes from the one that's been pre-approved. The initial onset of it is, we have the ordinance is what the ordinance is, so adopting by reference at this time doesn't forestall if it gets, the council feels it's getting way out of control in the future of repealing the adoption by reference and adopting our code in the future. It doesn't preclude that in the future, but at least gets us going now without having to take that responsibility on for negotiating directly with ecology, because we want to change the ordinance that's been already approved.
And the Department of Ecology, requires us to each adopt the same or closely comparable. And anything that would be changed or removed, you guys would have to confirm that it was still compliant with the state and federal regulations. And there's, I really bare minimum it. So
Yeah.
any tweaking may pull you out of line or out of compliance with those, and you have to just put it back in.
Right.
Because the state requires us to meet that minimum. So
1 minute.
Okay. So, any questions? Make them
I'm
fast.
gonna go with adoption by reference, and we can always change it if we have to in the future.
Okay, and we'll be discussing it at council, on May 7th, correct?
Yeah, and both would be in the packet.
Okay, great.
Right.
So we will adjourn the meeting at this time. We'll see everybody down